Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья.
Hello, dear friends. Hello, Diana.
Hello.
You know, when you look at the reality of the world in which we live today, you begin to think about what we are dedicating our lives to. There are so many desires and aspirations in which we invest all of our life resources. We always want something, we always lack something. And unfortunately, some external factors become reference points in our world. Events, someone's opinion, someone's preferences, tastes, someone's life. And so, we essentially turn away from ourselves and look around. And by looking around, we begin to see how other people live. And we immediately want to have the same beautiful life, well, as it seems to us. And there is such a widespread phenomenon as envy. And so today we would like to talk about envy. What is it? Where does it come from? Why does it come? And what to do about it?
Unfortunately, envy is a very common phenomenon today. And if you ask any person, what is envy? He will say, well, it's when I want to be in another person's shoes. And what kind of person? Well, the one who has more of something, right? Or there is something that I want very much. For example, I want some material things. I want such a house, such a car, such a, watch, right? Or when this person, for example, surpasses us intellectually, and then, for example, we want such a position that he holds. Or maybe there is envy when this person is better physically, by some physical parameters. For example, I want such beautiful hair, or I want a body with long legs, or whatever. But the interesting thing is that people who have all of this, they are also envious. Why? Let's imagine a person who has the most beautiful house, the most expensive car, the most beautiful appearance, and the highest IQ, but no one pays attention to him. Are we going to
It's all
envy
gone
him?
now.
Для чего же тогда это все?
What's it's all for then?
Absolutely. And so look, the subtle substitution, right? We think we are jealous of the other person because they have something more or something better than we have. But in fact, we are jealous of the person who gets more attention, who is at the center of attention. It turns out that a person's attention is the greatest value. And we pay attention and give importance to completely different things, not realizing what is actually valuable.
So behind envy, there is a trivial desire.
The desire to get as much attention as possible, you see? And if we look into the essence of this phenomenon, it means that envy is like shouting, give me attention, I want attention. And there is only one thing left to deal with.
Who is shouting?
Who is us? Right, who in us is screaming like this? Who is pushing us to get attention?
In other words, the only incentive that forces people to climb to the peak of power, no matter what slogans and what ideology they use, the only thing that forces them to go there is attention, the attention of other people. What makes people go to the mountains and conquer the unconquerable, risking their lives? Other people's attention. What makes people, as it is fashionable nowadays, on TikTok, on YouTube, and everywhere in social media, they post pictures when young people take risks. For instance, a person is hanging on one hand somewhere under the sky, on the boom of a crane. Or he commits some silly acts, standing on his hands at the edge of a tall building. That is, they risk their lives, not for the sake of a shot, not for the sake of attraction, but for the sake of attention. Although again, it's a stick of two ends. The more people watch him, the more views, while in fact, more attention is invested. But here, some people will say, it is invested where? Yes, in a digital record, but we already said many times before that modern technology doesn't break the connection. In other words, modern cameras, digital recording tie a person to the record to such an extent that it makes no difference whether you watch a movie or observe a person in reality. You invest your attention in his image, and this image feeds the person himself. The only thing we fight here for is the power of attention. Why? Because, pardon me, it's the primordial power, the power of a lot, which is intended for gaining life. If our everyday resource, so to say, what our body expends, we can call it prana, the energy of life. Then the power of a lot is a completely different source. It's the most precious thing available here.
And here, if we turn to traditional psychology, to how it defines the concept of a person, personality, we have already tried that. We are going to come to a dead end. Well, actually, psychology as a science, it never raises such question. Who is envious in
Well,
the
psychology definitely defines envy as something.
Sure, right. Psychology is more into what is this phenomenon about? How does a person behave? Why do they behave this way? Why does envy suddenly? But if we turn to the knowledge of the dual nature of a human, everything is very simple and clear. Look, every human being is personality, a spirit, what we really are, and there is a soul. And so personality and the soul are the main spiritual components of every human being. We have a body and consciousness which represent animal nature. So attention is an instrument of personality. It's an instrument of distribution of energy, the energy that gives life to every action in this world. The energy that our consciousness cannot exist without. And so human's consciousness is the ultimate hunter for attention. Because in fact, consciousness is just a dead program, a program that cannot exist without humans' attention.
And this program has a programmer.
Absolutely.
And naturally, it is this programmer who needs this constant harvesting of attention. Well, if we are talking about consciousness, understanding that a human being has both primary and secondary consciousness, and both have their own programs, their own programmed needs. And again, they have been created. And created for what? In order to constantly reap from people, to collect this harvest, the harvest of attention. And so, what happens then? If the desire of consciousness and the system to harvest attention is behind envy, then how do these people who are envied appear?
What I just remembered, there is a very interesting definition of envy given by a famous Austrian psychologist. Envy, desire for power and superiority. So the more attention, this life energy, a human's consciousness receives, the more power it has over other consciousnesses, as well as over the person himself. In fact, this is how it actually happens. Usually, the person who is in the spotlight, he really has more power, more superiority over others. That is, he has some privileges. Well, based on the knowledge and the general understanding of what consciousness is, its structure, and what's really behind this. Because the programmer that you just mentioned, the one who created this program, and in religious he is called the devil. And when you realize that human's consciousness is a demon in each of us, then what kind of power are we talking about, and what kind of hierarchy are we talking about? Is it a power, a hierarchy that exists only in the demon world, in the material world? And it's absolutely not the desire and aspiration of human himself, but it's the desire and aspiration of this beast component in humans, the beast that seeks power.
Сказал, что
Once Igor Mikhailovich have said that for some reason we, humans, have brought into this world demonic laws. For some reason we began to live in an aspiration to dominate each other. Somehow we began to live in an aspiration to build a hierarchy over the others. And now you realize that envy is a great tool to rise in this hierarchy. But again, if you go back to the point, who gives you this tool and who raises you in this hierarchy? And who do you end up serving? And what are you wasting your life on? And what will be the result in the end? Where will you end up in this set of demons? If you are constantly jealous, or if you are constantly stimulating envy in people.
And what is envy? A simple question, friends. What is envy? Say quickly, without thinking. Envy. What is it? What will your demon answer? What is it?
Desire, right?
Well, desire, yes. But what is it in actual fact? What is envy from the standpoint of a demon towards personality?
A means of siphoning off naturally.
No, it's stimulation.
Stimulation, yes.
The most banal stimulation for an action. Once again, for what?
Great.
For investing one's attention. No more than that.
Exactly. After all, they actually program it in these computer games so that a person would constantly see...
They keep stimulating.
Yes.
Would see those who achieve.
Yes.
Would see new opportunities and the like. And why in life, in our ordinary three-dimensional life, is a person always waiting? Who of you have truly achieved happiness, guys? No one. And you won't be able to achieve it in this world. Why? Because it doesn't exist here. We have such a goal. We'll get there and build a house. Banally, we have talked about it 1,000 times. Yet, we'll build a house, everything that has been programmed. A nice car, nice children, a nice position. And what follows after that?
And here,
Simply.
simply like in games, a parallel is drawn as well, because the system...
Well, in games, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
There is no aging and no diseases and no disrespect by relatives. No frightening inner loneliness when among relatives and friends. No understanding that death is approaching, while there is no way out. After all, there are no such things in games.
The system just keeps setting new goals.
There is always an exit in games.
Yes.
Surely. And then what do games end with?
The same, yes.
With triumph. You're becoming someone.
Yes.
You're given applause. You've become a hero. There are a lot of heroes in life too. People become heroes. They want to become heroes. But what happens afterwards, after the applause? Well, for example, a person has been doing sports all his life. Well, I'm a former athlete too. I know what it is, but I've never strived for these Olympic pedestals. I had other things to do, and I knew perfectly well what it is. But I have many friends who got on this pedestal, and life ends after that. Well, it seems to be continuing.
Psychologically, yes, and very early at that, a person realizes...
A tremendous psychological trauma. For as long as he is among the stars, he is sated by this.
In this triumph, yes.
And then he understands. He has no health. Well, it's good. It's a luck if a person is competent and smart. Let's say if he has managed to fulfill himself in life somehow. But as a rule, there is resentment, bitterness, and a feeling that no one needs him. And consciousness has no time. And here also, with time, it misbehaves very much. A person remembers himself, how he strived, what he did for the country. And what does it mean to win the Olympic Games, right? After all, you did it for people, for the whole country. The flag was raised in your honor. They applauded you for a while and forgot you. The country remains, people remain. But that honor is gone, and no one applauds you like that anymore. No one needs you anymore. You are already the past. And this is frightening and scary, you see?
This is also an interesting...
While a person gave up his life...
Yes.
сейчас так с тобой говорим о
We are
сознании.
talking about consciousness in the way that people might wonder. You are talking about it as something separate from me, but it's my consciousness, right? It's like something kind of separate, intelligent, living program with its own goals and purposes. It's like a separate being.
Да, разумная.
Yes, it is intelligent, but not alive.
Вот вся та разумность,
All
которую
the intelligence that we consider to be our own is the intelligence of consciousness, because consciousness is the intellect that we associate with ourselves, that we trust.
как самому себе.
We trust it as ourselves, but in fact, it is just a dead program, which, as I said, cannot exist without human attention. The main task and purpose of this program is to take away this energy from a person through attention. How? By drawing his attention through some thoughts, images which it sends to his head.
Один из вариантов
And so envy is one of the ways to take this vital energy away from humans, capturing their attention. Because look,
как мы
how
понимаем,
do we understand that we are envious of something?
я вообще понимаю,
How do
что
I
мне
understand
можно
that I need to be
заинтересовать
envious
вот
at all?
конкретно
Or do I need to be envious of this particular thing? So what do I want? Again, the program is in my head. Until I get the idea in my head that I want something, then it's, I don't know, a house is just a house, a car just a car. And until I hear it in my head that I want this house, I want this car, I actually don't want anything.
Поэтому
That's why
сознание, вот есть
consciousness
вот
is the
подсказчик, который нам
prompter
определяет,
that determines what we
что
need
нам
to
нужно
want.
делать, почему.
Why?
И, на самом
And
деле,
in
когда у нас
fact,
вот это
when we
«хочу»,
have
«хочу»
this
в голове,
wish in our head,
программа нас
what does the
зачем
program
посылает?
send us
Смотри,
for?
смотри, что у него
Here,
есть
look,
такое.
look
Давай,
what he's
принеси
got.
мне это.
Go,
Но
get
она
me
не
that.
говорит, что она нас
But
посылает на самом
it
деле
doesn't say
за
that it sent
вниманием
us,
человека,
in
за
fact,
его
for a
жизненной
person's
энергией,
attention, for his
потому
life
что, как я вот
energy,
сказала,
because,
внимание
as I said,
человека, оно
humans' attention redistributes humans' life energy as well. And when we cause envy in a person, or when we envy ourselves, we take life from another person. You could say that envy is a way of killing people.
свою, да.
But we give ours
Ours,
as
yes,
well.
absolutely. Because, first of all, our attention is included in this program.
Чтобы я
In order for me to continue to implement this program, I myself must first put my attention, accept its thoughts, and agree, yes, I need that, or I need to look in a certain way. I have to have some qualities that will make me stand out among other people, to get attention, to show my superiority, to generate that envy.
Yes, envy, as opposed to desire, is an important aspect as well. After all, what is desire? Desire is always a request to the system. It's enough to look at your life objectively and understand that we don't always get what we want. But we spend a lot of time, and I do not mean just doing something. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, pondering, imagining, dreaming that we already have it, that it appeared, and so on. And this is a waste of the same energy. But then again, when people all over the world actively visualize their desires just because they feel like it, but really, when you don't understand who wants it in you, when you don't understand who is pushing you towards it, and you don't understand what you're paying for it, it may seem to be a harmless visualization. Just imagining that you're driving the car you started to want today, or vacationing where your mate or neighbor was vacationing, because you're worthy of that vacation too. Why? Because you're worthy. Because consciousness is not logical, it does not explain. It has this constant want. Me, mine, I need it. Why do I need it? Why do I want it? Why is it mine? This eternal consumer in us is our consciousness, and we naturally live in such a way that we become a society of consumers, because consciousness dominates in humans. Not spirit, but consciousness. So we consume each other for the sake of some fleeting illusion of having something in three-dimensionality. And some people are even satisfied with those fantasies that they have in their heads, no longer even striving to achieve something in this world, although it's not hard.
Yes, Sasha, look, let's try to explain why. Why do we waste energy? Here we are saying a person really wastes his life energy. And if I said that envy is a way of killing people, what kind of energy is that the person distributes? Is it the life energy that is given to us for the purpose of gaining life? And look, if you go back to what is envy, psychology defines that's what psychology has clearly defined. It has defined envy as a negative feeling, which is provoked by the success of another person. It's very destructive for a person and lowers his
A
self-esteem.
negative feeling provoked by success. That is, in principle, if the other person is doing well, he provokes negative feelings in me. I'm ready to give psychology a standing ovation again for being an advocate of the system, because it fulfills its function here by 150%.
And look, you see, in psychology, everything negative is a feeling. The feeling of hate, resentment, envy, guilt.
These all are feelings.
It's all our feelings, right? And when you read things like this, it's clear now that either there is no understanding at all of what feelings are, because otherwise it would be impossible to write something like that, or on the contrary, someone understood very well what feelings are and what the great importance they have in a person's life and tried to discredit them this way. But in fact, we have said many times that feelings are only love, happiness, and joy. Feelings, language of communication between God and humans. Well, how can there be anything negative there? How can there be envy, resentment, or grievance? God is love. It is the true, purest love. That is why God hears our appeal only when we turn to Him with gratitude and love.
Yet, what does everything start with? With gratitude.
Yes.
With simple gratitude and with awareness. And afterwards, love comes too.
With this sincerity, indeed, the language of God is only the language of love,
There is no other language.
only the language of sincere feelings, only the language of sincere gratitude. And this is so great that he doesn't hear anything else.
Surely.
And many of our guys shared correctly that he is the best teacher.
Yes.
That God is the best teacher because he hears only the language of love.
And because He is merciful. And He is the most reliable friend. He always lends you His hand. The question is whether you lend Him your hand in return. That's the point. It's such a simple element of choice, but consciousness immediately interferes and showers you with images and desires again. God has lent you His hand, so you have to ask for something, you know?
He needs you.
Yes, exactly. And you immediately address Him like a genie with a whole list. No, friends, God is not a genie. While Satan is exactly Satan. What's the point in asking or demanding from Him, right? So you shouldn't, address the devil with some kind of demand. He's just the devil. That's his job. And when you realize and understand that, life becomes much easier. So friends, mature faster.
And envy is a burdensome state, very heavy, very negative. It's not for nothing that they say black envy, malicious envy. Yes, envy makes a person dry. Envy is filled with what? Anger, fear, sadness. It is an emotion. Envy is an emotion. And emotion is always a consequence of thought. That's what I was talking about. How will we understand that we want this? How do we understand who we should envy and why am I envious right now? Because these thoughts arise in the mind. I want this or I want that. What other thoughts go through our heads? Why isn't it happening to me? Why don't I have it? Why wasn't I born into this rich family, in this beautiful house, at this wonderful time? Why wasn't I invited somewhere? This is a huge flow of complaints, a huge flow of anger towards myself, towards other people who have something better. And it's just consciousness. If we go back, why do we need this program? A legitimate questions arise. Why do I need this monster? Why do I need it if it constantly provokes me to such negativity, to hate, to envy, to resent? That's what it is for, so that we can learn to separate illusion from reality, that from a life. That's why we need this program. And we associate it with ourselves with the help of science. And we think, I'm this evil thoughts, and then suffer from it, because everyone feels that I'm actually different. I'm kind, I'm good, I want to be loving. I know how to appreciate the other person.
Yes. Look, it's interesting, especially all the stuff that you said about anger. Because really, if you look at envy superficially, you don't identify anger there, and then you get angry. Again, consciousness gets angry that it doesn't have that, and it's angry at you, and it's angry at another person, but it doesn't want to do anything. It's also a very important aspect of this envy. We always want something, something that another person has, and we don't. We want to have a life of a celebrity. We want, I don't know, to have super mega obedient, successful, beautiful children. We want to have loving parents. We want to have a partner next to us who will reach us halfway. Well, we want. And the thing is that society promotes these desires. It promotes them through images, all that we see around us. We see happy people on covers who have everything cool and healthy, and we are encouraged to do this, to aspire to this life, to this way of life, to strive to be like them. Yet no one asks the question, what have people given up for that? Or, as you pointed out very well, are they really happy? Advertising this kind of image. And when a person is envious, let's say he saw a beautiful fancy car and someone's driving it, he doesn't even think about how much the person had to give up to be able to drive that car now. And he doesn't wonder, am I willing to pay the price he paid to get this vacation, this house, this family, this education, this position, this status? Maybe he didn't need it at all, and he was ready to trade it all.
At that price.
For something much different, something that's foreign to you today. These, I don't know, I don't even know what to call them, representatives? This is also an amazing word. In marketing, they are called brands angels. Angels of this brand of consumerism, first of all. They're not angels, you have to understand. And what do they propagate? They propagate that. They propagate a non-equivalent exchange. Give up your life for an illusion. Get angry at someone for having it. Get angry at yourself that you don't have it. And there's this instigator sitting in you, pushing you. This, I want that. How are those same revolutions organized? They just show the difference in the level of life of one group of people and another. Take away from this, give to this. Why should they have it and we don't? It's not fair and so on, because these are the same tools, and consciousness is doing the same thing. And it was done by those who understand very well how it works, those who continue to run the consumer society. And, unfortunately, it is a society of slaves. Why is that? Because we are enslaved by desires. But the thing is, they are not our own, they are desires of our consciousness.
Yes, and if you correctly define what role envy plays here in consumer society, then we can say that envy is a weapon of mass murder today. Because what you've said is correct. If you look at our society, it's constantly stimulating envy in people, right? And all you need to do is to create inequality, and that is the ground for this envy to arise. And those images that you have talked about, it's always an image. What a successful and happy person, a person who deserves respect. Is it a kind, honest, humble person? No, it's a person who has a lot of things, a person
A
who
high
is
status
superior.
person.
A high status person, a status person. I mean, definitely society itself stimulates envy, but it should be understood what we pay, what price we pay for being involved in this game. The price of this game is life, eh? Because when a person experiences emotions like fear, anger, sadness, up to the point of this
They are very hatred.
hatred, so it's all the same emotion, Sasha. It's all the same thing. You have to understand that we burn our life energy. We just burn it if we spend it on illusion. We just, I don't know, pour it into nothing, so to say. And so what's the price of envy? That's also the point you made. Absolutely right. I envy, but do I gain anything in the end? In the end, I only get death. I don't get people who envy. They don't usually aim to possess it. I mean, you really have to make an effort. Well, I like this house. Okay, then go to work so you
No.
can buy.
No, it's not interesting.
Yeah, I want to be in this professor's shoes. Then you have to stay up all night, study, research. You are welcome. Develop intellectually if you want. But that's exactly what the beast doesn't want to do. The same beast that pushes. But it doesn't want to read an article or write something. It doesn't want to study anything. It doesn't want to. It wants one thing. It wants us to be in anger, in hatred, in this sadness and despair. Because the only aim of this beast, when it's out of control, is to take our lives. And look at the level of mockery this system has reached. It encourages people to be envious of anything as long as they are the center of attention. It even encourages envy of suffering. Here is a very common example. For instance, there is a disabled child in the family. His brothers and sisters envy him because he receives more attention from their parents, grandparents, teachers, and so on. Naturally, the person is disabled and the envy is spurred on this beast in their heads. And how many people in general envy, for instance, some person with disability who has achieved success? That is, the person really managed to overcome this whining, this despair, and he shows that, guys, it doesn't matter if you have arms, legs, if you have any health problems, you can still do a lot and you can achieve a lot. And people with arms and legs start envying the disabled instead of showing. Well, the disabled is showing you what he can do and you have even more opportunities. Instead of realizing them, instead of exploring your potential in general, people start envying. And spend their lives doing what? That's the price of envy, to be in constant fear, in constant anger and sadness, sorrow. But certainly not joy. That's the price of joy.
You know, I remembered a story that happened to me a few years ago. It involved, well, let's call it an attempt of envy to rise. I just noticed that all of a sudden I became interested in a car of some brand, which previously I had been indifferent to. And naturally, my consciousness began to pay attention to it more and more often. I think I started noticing cars of this model in the parking lot near my home or when I was driving somewhere. It is strange, I thought. And then you start like, that's easy. I need it.
Зачем?
I'm thinking strange. I kinda have a car already. What for? No. Well, anyway, consciousness needed it. Like, I just want it, that's it. And I remember one evening walking outdoors. You need it. Look, well, these ahs and signs, it's so... knowing what it is, where it's coming from. I simply said, well, you want it, earn it. Find a way. Well, I was quite adamant at that and set a rigid frame to my consciousness in terms of finding a legal way within a certain time frame to get the means to buy such a car. The very second the rules of the game were laid out, it's like, oh, come on, what are you saying? We don't need it all.
We don't need anything.
Everything is good as it is. Well, just agree that it's beautiful. It's a beautiful car. Anyway, that was the end of the issue. My attention was no longer focused on the fact that it's time to change anything and that it's exactly the car we need. And you know what else I would like to clarify, since we talked through it today, and it's quite a popular phenomenon of black and envy and white envy. Can envy be white?
No, it can't. We've already said that envy is an emotion, a very negative emotion that literally make a person exhausted. There is no white or black envy. It's like, a lesser and greater evil, that kind of trait with demons. There is envy, and you have to understand its essence. And you have to understand, by the way, now the example that you gave, that was suffering, was suffering under the name of envy, that starts with a thought in our head, which we agree to. As a matter of fact, envy begins with the investment of attention in the image of a car that consciousness has suggested in order for us to be envious. Let's have such a car. First it shows us the image that we should envy. And as soon as the person puts attention into the picture and agrees, yes, there is exactly what I need, then that is, the process has started. So we have to be very careful about where we put our attention. But this kind of caution and awareness you can only have when you understand what consciousness is. Where does it come from in the first place? How does this mechanism develop? Who are you in reality, and what can you be free from? Why can you be free from it? And as soon as you understand, most importantly, who you really are, then you understand that you have nothing to envy and no one to envy. Because see how wise, kind, and merciful God is. For the purpose of human life is to gain life. That's it. That is what we are here for. That is the most important thing. And in order to gain it, each of us has everything we need to fulfill this purpose. And for that, it doesn't matter what situation you are in, whether you have a lot of material things, whether you have a few, or whether you have any at all. Everything that a person needs in order to get the most important prize bonus, in order for him to implement the most important chance, he has everything. He has the most valuable thing, attention. He has the tool, and he has a constant connection to his soul. There is a constant connection with God, and God always supports a person, always, no matter what he or she has. So, what is there to envy? And you have to understand a very important thing, that until a person has developed to this perfect spiritual being, until he becomes an angel, until he merges as personality with his soul, every person is just a transmitter. He is a transmitter of either the will of God or the devil. He is a transmitter of either good or evil, love or hate, and that's the only function of each person in each moment to make choice. Whose side are you on? Whose will are you transmitting into this world? That's it. And everyone has this function. God has given everyone equally with this function the right to choose. Whose side do you want to be on? Whose side do you support right now? And so depending on that choice, one either acquires the highest reward, life, or comes to death. Everything is fair and just. And so when you understand all of this, then it's not clear at all what are there to envy
and what for?
and what for.
Right.
Of course. You know, I used to have these thoughts and I've heard them, and a lot of people also shared this, like such envy of these people who lived in the time of Jesus, in the time of Buddha, or how it sounded in my head, what happy people they were. They could communicate with the source, hear the truth.
Но это, правда, не подстегивало меня
But it
глубже.
really didn't spur me on to study the Bible in more detail or anything else. Friends, we live in the time of the Holy Spirit, when that kind of knowledge is out in the world. I don't know, one can die of self-envy. It's like, I don't know, I've been trying, to find some word now, fantastic. It's not incomparable to anything at all. Have you ever dreamed about happiness, about unearthly happiness? Here it is. Take the book Alatra, live, study, breathe, enjoy it, because happiness really is unearthly, and it's really breath-catching. It's like, I don't know, I couldn't even dream of that. And I understand that the times are harsh, quite challenging, and there is this darkness that has thickened in our world. And so if I say now that, friends, we are living in an amazing time, a lot of people will probably be...
They will think there's something wrong with the psychiatrist.
And yet I say, friends, we live in a wonderful time. We live in an amazing time. We live in the time of crossroads. We live in the time of human choice for us, humans, to become a true civilization and transition into the golden millennium. Or we will all perish destroying each other, because this animal society where everyone hates each other, mocks each other, kills each other, is of no interest to anybody. God is not interested in it. But in order to cross over, to become a true civilization, we all need to put our attention into one goal, into the main idea, into the creative society project.
Прекрасно, что у каждого
It's
человека
wonderful that each person, no matter where they are, how they live, what choices they make in their lives, whether they are exposed to the current trends of society, and envy. Envy is a natural element in their lives, let's say.
здорово, что
It's great that, indeed, we are free in our choices, and we can easily, somehow live between black and white envy, envying people either in a good or a bad way, when they are doing well in life, when they are achieving something, or we can just rejoice
за кого?
Rejoice for someone, for a friend, for a brother, for a neighbor, for a like-minded person, for a person just like you, who has made his choice today. And he tries to help in making sure that we all live, that we all have a future, that our children and our children, even those people we've never seen in our lives, have a future. And he does it with joy, not with envy, like someone else has something and I don't, and so now I'm going to change something in my life, in others, and I'm going to have it too. No. These are absolutely two different stimuli in a person's life. when you're jealous of somebody and you do something based on that, and when you're happy about something and you're doing something based on that. So, Diana, thank you very much. Friends, thank you very much. And may there be more joy in our lives. All the best to you.
Friends, remember a simple truth. Everything rests on our attention. There is nothing more valuable than our attention. And the struggle in this world actually takes place solely for attention. Everything else is a derivative. Everything else is a distraction. Everything is secondary. Nothing can be compared to the power of our attention. When they offer you to take offense or accept some grief from someone, don't take it. If you are offended and you don't take it, it stays with the one who offered it to you, and it eats him up. Well, he's actually a mediator, a distributor from Satan. He chose it himself, so let it stay with him. While in you there is peace and quiet, there should be God's love in you, and not hatred for someone. Then it is right, then life is begotten. So, whatever we take, for example, those very resources or money, it's an equivalent. We are striving for something all the time, to earn more or something else. We've already discussed that. There are basic needs. You have satisfied them and there is no pleasure anymore. Take that wobbler as an example, right? Fish doesn't care whether the wobbler is cheap or expensive. If there is no fish, it won't bite and you will not catch it. However, where do we invest our attention? In advertising. We invest attention in buying some wobbler or something else. Yes, life is made up of these little things, but it depends on the way we invest. As a matter of course, by understanding and being guided by inner needs. If you need it, you take it, and if you don't need it, you don't take it. But if you think about it, if you invest a lot of attention in there, and at the same time, you're empty inside, then what's the point of that wobbler, or that new house, or whatever? Because it's not your house, no matter what house you build here. A tomb will be your house. But if you build a God's temple within yourself, then it will be your eternal home, right? Right. That's where it all begins. You should cherish your attention.